What's going on, guys? This is Ryan from Bible Dingers, and I am here to bring you part 2 of the Prolegomena series. All right, guys, so last time we kind of went over the overall definitions of the different types of theology are out there. So for the part 2, we're going to sort of break that down, and we're going to start with theology proper. So theology proper actually subdivides into 3 different sections. So there's PATEROLOGY, which is the study of God the Father. There's CHRISTOLOGY, which is the study of the Son, or Christ. And then there's PNEUMATOLOGY, which is the study of the Holy Spirit. These 3 terms are all going to get their respective follow-up videos in the Prolegomena series. We'll go through all those at some point, but there is a list of words that you should know pertaining to theology proper before we sort of dive deeper into those terms. So the first 2 terms we're going to look at, we actually talked about in part 1 of this series. The first one is cataphatic theology, and that's basically what God is. And then there's apophatic theology, which is basically negative theology, what God is not. Following that, we have the Trinity. The Trinity is that God exists in 3 persons. They're 3 distinct persons, but it's one God. Now, I want to go over some terms that you need to know when it comes to the Trinity. The first is Trinitarianism. So this is sort of the standard belief for Christianity that I mentioned earlier, that God is 3 distinct persons in one. Apart from Trinitarianism, there's something called monarchianism. And monarchianism basically means that there's no distinct persons within God. So under the monarchiastic set of beliefs, you'll find 2 main beliefs. The first one is modalism, and this is essentially that God works in modes, that there's 3 different modes of God. He will be in the form of the Holy Spirit, and then he will be, or in the mode of the Son, and then he will be in the mode of the Father, but that they're not 3 distinct persons, that they're just 3 different forms that God takes on. And then there's also Unitarianism, which is basically that God is one person, that is one God. But something to note for Unitarians is that they don't believe that Jesus is God. Another term that you should know when it comes to the Trinity is Godhead. So essentially, Godhead is just another way of saying Trinity. There's 2 different kinds of attributes of God. There's communicable attributes and there's incommunicable attributes. That was kind of hard to say. So communicable attributes are attributes that you find in some degree in God's creation. That's attributes like love or joy. Now, incommunicable traits are traits that his created beings don't have in any sort of terms. The first one is omniscience. And this is basically God's capacity to know everything. So God is omniscient. This is incommunicable. There's no creature that he has created that has any sort of omniscience. The next one is going to be omnipresence. And this is God's capacity to be everywhere at the same time. And typically, when people say omnipresence, they're talking about God's ability to be everywhere geographically, I suppose, at the same time. But it also means that he can be at any time that he wants. So it's not only space that omnipresence talks about, but also time. Also, there's omnipotence, and this is essentially that God is all powerful. So he's omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, and these are incommunicable attributes. Another attribute of God is immutability. This essentially means that God is unchanging. He's immutable. He is unchanging. Another attribute of God is his transcendence, which means that he is distinct from, he is above this universe. The next attribute of God is his sovereignty. Now, when we get into soteriology, sovereignty is a little bit of a buzzword, but essentially it means that he is the solo ruler. He rules alone over all of creation. First, there is monotheism, which is the belief in one God, mono. Second is polytheism, which is the belief in many gods. Third is pantheism, which basically means that God is in everything and everything is in God. So God is everything. And lastly, we have deism. Deism is the belief that God exists, but he's not really active and working in our current universe, in our current state of affairs. That's deism. That's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you like and subscribe. Also, we are online at www.bibledingers.com, where you can get pretty much any resources that we have. We have blog posts, we have podcast episodes. You'll find these videos on there as well. Lastly, we are on Patreon, so make sure if you like what you're seeing here, you support us on Patreon. You can be part of our Bible studies. We have group chats. They get early access to things, so make sure you find us at Bible Dingers on Patreon and follow us on social media. We're at Bible Dingers across the board. Thanks, guys.